The YouTube.
We'll do it anyways.
Oh my gosh.
And let me make sure we are recording.
This conference will now be recorded.
Ready, honey?
All right, I'd like to welcome everyone to the February 7th City Council meeting. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bellinger,
Here?
Councilmember Crumick,
Here.
Councilmember Hagan,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Swift,
Here?
and Mayor Alves.
Here. This evening, I'd like to start by having an introduction of our county supervisor, Robert Rickman. Would you please come to the podium?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, council members, staff. Thank you for letting me speak here today. I just wanted to stop by and introduce myself. I'm Robert Rickman, the County Supervisor for District 5. As you all know, because of redistricting and the census, our districts have changed. And I know formerly District 5 was Mountain House, Tracy, River Islands, and half of Manteca. And we stopped at Ripon. And because of the redistricting we dropped Manteca and River Islands, we picked up Ripon and Escalon. So we picked up the entire South County. And it's the same district, well, it's a district that was like 20 years ago. And, I just wanted to come here tonight, introduce myself, and let you all know that if you need anything, please reach out and reach to my office and let me know. Or I know some of you have my phone number. Please call and let me know. I'm very, very involved, and I know Escalon for a long time. I have family that lives here that we were just talking about for over 20 years. I still come down and see the Escalon and football and watch them play football, and they have a great football team. So I am very involved in the community, and I do push very hard for South County to make sure we're getting our, fair share. And I talked to the mayor about some, money opportunities, hopefully, for South County. But with that being said, just want to say thank you for having me, and God bless you all, and keep up the great work. Escalon's a great community. I was born and raised in Tracy. My daughters are 4 generations, and growing up in Tracy, this is what Escalon reminds me of. You know everybody. We all gather around the football games on Friday night, and so it's something that warms my heart, and you'll see a lot of me here.
We thank you for coming. Is there any questions for the supervisor? Any gentlemen?
None right now.
Thank you very much, and I want to tell you that it's nice to have a supervisor who knows where Escalon's at.
No, hey, like I said, it's a great community, and a lot of good Portuguese food here. So you'll see me down here a lot more.
All right, good to see you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we see, we're rolling down here to the consent calendar. All right, gentlemen, what's your pleasure?
Yeah, Mayor Alves, regarding item number 2, I will be abstaining from voting on check numbers 9839 and 76606.
Okay,
I want to pull 3 and 4 and 5 to just get a quick overview of those ones, please.
very good. All right, so we have a balance of 6 and 7. Let's see, where are we at here? We got 1, 6, and 7 for a vote. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay.
1, 2.
1, 2.
1, 2, 6, 7, excuse me. 1, 2, 6, 7. Okay, I'll accept a motion.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Carries 5-0. Okay, good. Now, let's take one at a time here. Let's start with number 3. Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, just approve the City of Escalon's 2022 investment policy. What exactly is that, and what is that policy, investment policy? What does that mean?
So, good evening. The investment policy is required to be brought before council annually, and we're a little bit late in bringing this forward. There are some revisions that have been made to it to make it more current. Basically, it sets the policy in place for what we can invest in and what we can't. And some of those things are dictated to us by certain regulations which are in this policy. For the unique thing about City of Escalon is that we do hire third-party investors for much of what we do. Most of it's in LAIF. Some of it is in the RMA investments and basically with Chandler. And then we really don't do separate investments beyond that. So this is kind of simplified from what you might see at other cities because of that.
What's the LAIF and what are those things you just, is this talking about the investment policy for like investing for our employees and their retirement, or what are we talking about here?
No, oh, I'm sorry. Let me go back.
I know this is probably in the thing somewhere buried, but I just wanted to kind of a bird's eye view of what this was, just so I understand.
Good questions. LAIF is a government investment group, local agency investment fund.
Okay.
And it pools money together. It's basically our cash balances out of our banks for a lot of government.
Oh.
We have the option of putting it in this state investment pool, basically, to get a better rate out of it. We can also invest in something a little bit more aggressive, which we do through our, it's called Central San Joaquin Valley Risk Management Authority. Excuse me. And they have an investment manager over, again, a pool of money coming from others in this agency, this group. LAIF is Local Agency Investment Fund.
And you said that we outsource this investment policy to a third party?
Those are our third parties.
Those are third parties?
Those are them.
Okay. That's good enough for me. Let's move on to number 4. That's what I wanted to look at too. Can you pull 4 up on the screen there real quick? So just again, what is this? This is to, who are we awarding this contract to again?
So this project, we had a bid opening for this project, and we received 2 bids on the project. The engineer's estimate was projected at $142,000 or $143,000, and the bids came in at $275 and $314. So we do a pre-qualification process and made sure that both of these bidders are qualified, and so the bid is then, with council's permission, awarded to the RL Friend Construction out of Merced.
So we budgeted 140 and it's double that, right?
No, and the fiscal impact, I don't know if it's been, I don't believe it's been budgeted yet because we're still, is this in the new budget? It is budgeted?
Budget already.
And this is for building the sewer and water facility? What is this for?
Justin, can you give the specifics
Hey,
on Lillian Avenue?
let me step in for a minute. Peter, let me answer your question. This is Justin. What this is for is some water valve replacement in Caltrans right-of-ways, like on Highway 120. We have some issues with being able to shut water down in a certain area. And right now we have an issue over in that type of area. We're having to shut off like 7 to 10 blocks rather than just one. And a lot of this work is in the Caltrans area. And just because of, I guess, if you want to blame COVID, all the prices continually monthly keep going up. And shipping keeps going up, so the prices just keep changing. That's really the reason for the increase.
Oh, okay. Did this, was this before us before, or was this the first time this has been on an agenda?
This project, if it's in the budget, it would have been presented in the annual budget that was approved back in June.
And that's when we awarded the contract to?
No, that's when we would have budgeted for the project.
Oh,
So
I
the
see.
project would have been laid out in your capital improvements funding.
And it was budgeted, what was budgeted? How much?
The original, we don't have it listed. I don't recall how much we budgeted specifically.
Okay.
But we do have the funding available in the account.
Okay.
To make up that difference. And
Okay.
so that's why we're able to do so. And this
Okay.
total amount of $300,026 also includes a grant, a change order authorization in case expenses are needed to be taken care of. which will only happen if that's needed. And so the project itself is 275.26, but we're asking for the 300,026 with that change order amount in case it's needed in the future.
Okay.
You might have to ask a question.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Andy.
absolutely.
Quick question. Do you know why there's such a gross difference in the price, like from 140 to 300,000?
That's like what Justin had mentioned before, and we've been seeing this over the last few years, non-COVID related, that the construction prices for everything are continuing to increase. And so it's quite possible that that engineer's estimate has increased significantly from when it was originally prepared by our engineers to now that the project's being bid, even though it's only been maybe 5 or 6 months' time, everything's continuing to rise with the types of materials and things that are needed to do in the project.
Are there any other questions, gentlemen? Okay, let's move on to the next one.
So if I may, council member, remember, once we pull something from the consent agenda, it's as if it's literally in the normal agenda, so we have to treat it as such.
Okay, so we open it up to the
So
committee.
you open up to, so each item as it comes up, you open it up to public comment, and then if you have a motion or a vote on it.
Sure. Okay, well then,
Probably need to go back to number
I was gonna
4.
say, go back to number three.
Three.
Number 3.
Right, correct.
All right, so is there anyone in the audience or online that would like to address item number 3, approval of the city of Escalon's 2022 investment policy? Okay, having heard no response, we'll move to number 4, consideration of awarding the sewer and water facility installation improvement project to the low bidder. Anybody here or anyone online? One question I have, how could we be so grossly apart from 142 to up to 300,000? That's double almost, or actually more than double.
More than double,
I'm
yeah.
not absolutely sure.
Because normally our engineers are pretty accurate, or at least within a football field.
Yeah, Justin, would you have a better response?
You know, honestly, the only thing I can honestly say is I'm just not sure because I think some of the pricing went up, but I also think because this is being on 120, we have contractors we're fearing about getting the permitting, being able to put some shoring in 120. So we really think the price kind of went up just because of the location being on 120 and having to deal with Caltrans.
Interesting.
Do we know when the engineer created this estimate of 142 and change? As far as how
Approximately, I would say about a year from a year ago today, February-ish of last year.
Okay, so it's a year-old bid, okay. That helps a little bit as well to know.
Okay.
Mayor Alves, if you don't mind, Mark, are we better off by treating each of these as an individual motion at this point? Or,
Yes.
you know,
Yes, council member.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you want to go back and approve each one, or do you want to wait till we're done and approve each one of them?
The best way is to approve each one as you
As we go.
complete them up.
Okay, let's start with number 3.
So like item number 3, I approve the investment policy effective 2022-23.
Second.
Well, okay, motion second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Let's go to number 4. Do you have a motion?
Move on staff's recommendation.
Second?
We have a motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, carries 5-0. Number 5, consideration of approving nonprofit organization application for reduced fees for the use of city facilities.
Yeah, I lumped this one in there. I don't have too many questions about this, but it's just, we're reducing fees further. I thought we did that. What, are we revisiting that or?
No, so this is approving the nonprofit organization applications, and so we actually haven't done this the past few years because we weren't renting out any of the community center for
right.
COVID, and so we're jumping right back onto our process where these are the 6 nonprofits that typically come to us annually and do some type of event with us, and so we get them approved at the beginning of the year in case they have multiple events. They don't have to keep coming back to council.
So it's an
Okay.
annual thing, approval?
So it's a, annual thing, we do these 6 every year, and then there's other groups that may come to us and ask for a waiving or removal of fees, and those ones are brought to you per event. But these are the 6 in town that we automatically take to council.
Very good.
That's all I had.
Ask a question real quick?
Sure, of course.
For this Mariah's Life application, could you explain that a little bit more? I think it's Mariah.
Let me just go to that one.
You were wanting to add it, I think, add it to the rest of the nonprofits on that list, or? Excuse me.
Do you have a page number on that item?
35? Page 35?
Right.
Oh, at the bottom. I believe that that sentence was not updated for those 6 events. This is probably a templated staff report. That part was not edited. So that's not, that they're not listed as one. They've probably come to us in the past. So staff is recommending that council consider approval of the applications from, and it's the American Legion Post 263, El Portal Parents Club, Escalon Community Ambulance, Escalon High School Sports Boosters, Escalon Lions Club, and Escalon Sunrise Rotary. So that Mariah's gift value life is incorrect.
Okay.
So it's these six only.
So what you're saying is that's a misprint or?
It is a misprint, yeah, that's the templated line that we put at the end of every staff report, and it wasn't updated in the staff report.
Okay, good call. Thank you, Councilman Hagan. All right, so, back to, any more questions, gentlemen? I'll accept the motion for item number 5.
Yeah, I move that the council.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, that's right, that's right.
If anyone would like to speak, please come to the podium.
Mr. Mayor, City Council members, Sean Stroman, Yosemite Avenue. I just have a question about these 6 and about this whole policy. So, you know, it's my understanding that anytime a nonprofit organization wants to hold an event in the city, they're required to submit a $75 fee. And that $75 fee is an annual fee. And, I mean, honestly, going through this, I mean, as you all know, I am the Cub Scout leader, and I don't think it's really prudent to identify these 6 organizations in particular. I think the way that this should read is for all nonprofit organizations within the city of Escalon, not just these 6 in particular. Further, I guess my question is, and I understand that there's staff time, but really, what does that $75 do? I mean, in a community the size of Escalon, we're trying to teach community and togetherness, you know, join a nonprofit. And those $75, while they're small, that $75 is small. I mean, do we really need to charge the $75 for nonprofits who are truly trying to make a difference in the city of Escalon? I mean, if we're going to do this the right way, maybe what we should do is waive the application fee for nonprofit organizations, because every year these organizations have to budget $75, $75, $75. And what do they get out of it? Not too much. And so I'd like to make a recommendation to the city council to waive the $75 fee for all nonprofit organizations, as long as the rest of the criteria is adhered to, that most of the members are within this 95320 zip code. Thank you.
Thank you. Staff?
I know it's per ordinance, and so I would have to go in through the ordinance and see if the fee is specifically discussed in that ordinance. That's something I can look into and provide an update on at the next meeting.
We
if
can
you'd
do
like
that.
to postpone this item to the next meeting as well.
Gentlemen, do we have any problem with that?
No, when we do that at the next meeting, I would ask that we can have information on, being that they're nonprofits or anybody who's not a nonprofit, what are their requirements as far as like insurance coverage or cleaning fees or those sort of things for compare and contrast for that discussion.
I think, and that's fine, I don't have any problem with that, but I know that there was a reason why we went with the 75, because I remember we went through every little bit of this ordinance, and there's a reason
Yeah.
why.
I could go back on
just
the
can't
notes
remember.
as well, because we revisited this ordinance, I want to say maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I remember it coming back to council and being revisited.
The issue is that we were getting such a long, extensive list of possible organizations, but again, I can't remember off the top of my head, but there's a reason why. I just can't
Yeah, and if you look at the bottom of the staff report or halfway down, these are the guidelines guidelines that were updated at that time, so if you met this criteria, you know, you could be approved. And so let me go ahead and I'll revisit that and provide an update. And you can opt to, you know, move forward with this item, or if you want to move it
We'll
to the
just
next
table
meeting.
it.
Well,
Is that right, gentlemen? We table
well,
it?
as long as it doesn't affect any of these organizations with any events coming up.
Well, do we have anybody scheduled that you know of in the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
Not that I'm aware of, and then annually, this is usually happening in January, so we're
Okay.
about a month behind.
Okay.
I don't think another 2 weeks would be an issue.
Perfect. All right.
That's
Any
fine.
objections, gentlemen?
So Councilman Bellinger?
Yes.
I know for nonprofits within the city of Escalon, if a nonprofit wants to hold any sort of fundraising, they have to have a business license. But the business license fee is waived because of their nonprofit. So all I'm asking for is continuity between this application fee for nonprofits to use city facilities to match the same policy as the business license fee. And most nonprofits, I mean, you have to have a business license, and so most nonprofits are required to submit $1 million, I think $1 million, $2 million liability claim to use city facilities, which,
That's why I was just asking, that's why I was curious what we were.
That is a standard amongst anybody
Okay.
who does something on city property, but I wasn't sure of the amount, if it's 1 million or 2, so I can get back to you.
But you know, you mentioned that, I think the $75 has more to do with, you're right, that special events application, of which, to use city property, you know, versus something for the community center. I'm pretty sure now that you mentioned that, that has to do with that special events application. And that is a review process by which, you know, you go through the fire department, you go through the ambulance, you go through the, you know, so there's some legwork there. I'm not saying it's justifying $75, but I think
It is
that's
routed.
what it is.
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
routed interdepartmentally, and
Yeah.
Okay.
all I'm saying though is if we can waive the business license fee for nonprofits, this ordinance should be in alignment with that for nonprofits. Make them both the same. That's all.
We'll take it under advisement. We'll get back to that on the next meeting. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to discuss this item? Is there anyone on the phones or internet that would like to discuss this item? All right, we're going to table this and come back to it at our next meeting. Is that all right, gentlemen?
That's fine.
All right, very good. All right, we're going to move down here to staff communications, treasury report for December.
And this is the one item that was not presented at our last meeting, because we didn't have all the numbers together. So if you have any questions on that, we can answer them. And then we do have, Justin has some updates, I have some updates, staff updates, so.
All right, gentlemen, are there any questions for staff?
I didn't have any on the treasury report, but I'd like to hear what you guys had for staff communications.
Okay.
Justin, would you like to go first?
Sure, I can go first.
Okay, thank
I
you.
just want to update council and everybody listening. I'm sure you've seen in the last few weeks, we have the benches actually have been removed from the dugouts in the baseball field, the concrete benches that were splitting. Wood got held up, but hopefully we're going to get those in the next week. But we are replacing those with new wood seats, which will be nice for the kids. And also, today we have fenced off the old Hogan bathrooms. We are in the process. Public Works Department is demolishing the bathroom, removing that, because in March, early March, we will have our new bathroom set in place. In the meantime, there are ADA restrooms and wash stations available at Hogan. So everybody be ready, hold tight. We've got new bathrooms coming.
Yeah.
Very good. All right.
Thank you.
Any more questions for Justin, gentlemen? We're good? Staff?
Unless council has questions.
Does anyone here have a question for the chief regarding any item? I have a matter I'll discuss with you after the meeting.
So it doesn't look like anyone else has some updates,
Is it you
so I
had
have a
some?
few.
Yeah.
I have one question before we go for the,
Sure.
when's baseball season start for the kids?
Good question. I'm
Nobody
not
knows?
absolutely sure.
Typically,
The first practice is February 24th or 3rd. It's coming up.
When do we throw the ball out and all the people get together the first day?
I don't know. That's gotta be
typically, that's the
March.
first Saturday in March, typically.
Yeah, Bridget told me the date, I just can't
Yeah.
recall, but
Okay,
it's
so we're
either-
somewhere around the 1st of March.
I could send the date out to
Yeah.
everyone.
Please do.
Typically first Saturday, but that's, again, who knows this year?
I have to be there. So if you'll just email that, or if you text me, anything you want to do is fine.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay, I'm writing that down for me.
thank you.
Okay, so I have a number of updates. The first update is you may have noticed that we have partnered with Escalon Unified School District and are providing the location for the COVID testing over at the community center. The testing is available Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 12 noon to 5 p.m. So anybody that's wanting to go and get tested, it's free. They're offering 2 different types of tests, the rapid and the antigen, and there's one other one. They take about an hour to process, and you do need to register in advance. And so if you call either City Hall or the school district, they'll give you the link to the website. And if you have children enrolled in the school district, they've been providing updates to everybody on how to enroll. We also have our updated meeting with the school district set for this Thursday, February 10th. We are having it here at City Hall as a change. So it'll be here at City Hall at 8 a.m. Update on well 1A. We executed all the paperwork and are waiting for the executed agreement from the state regarding the state revolving loan. But we do have authorization from the state to move forward with putting that project out to bid. And so we are hoping to get the bids out on that in the next 3 to 4 weeks. I need to,
Making that noise.
So we get the bids out in the next 3 to 4 weeks, and then,
and that'd be for well 1A project.
the project, and then, so we could see shovel ready in what, another 60 to 90 days?
I am not sure, and I hate to hold this to something that I'm not 100%
Just curious.
sure
Or 6 to 8 months.
Yeah.
So there we are with that. And then I know we've talked in the past of the municipal services review. We did fall behind schedule due to some software issues on the city's end. We had antiquated AutoCAD and programs that were making it difficult to update all of our mapping and make proposals to take before LAFCO. So that is close to 99% complete, and as soon as we get those final details, which we're hoping to get done this week, it's going to be submitted over to LAFCO staff for review and feedback. And once we address any of the review and feedback through LAFCO, it will come before council for review. And once it's approved by council, it'll go before the LAFCO board for review and approval. At that point, if you may recall, the council maybe a year, 18 months ago, passed a resolution allowing the city to allow for the 18-acre parcel off of Brennan, known as the Carr property, to move forward with annexation. And so that is ideally what this,
Is that
that's
stuff
the
still
main
drying, or
component.
did you start it over?
We gotta mute Justin, I think.
Justin, can you mute your mic?
Go ahead and I'll mute him. Let's see if I can, I don't know which one he is. And so once we do that, LAFCO would then take proposals for annexation. And so at that point, the owner / developer of that property would be in the position to where they could annex once the MSR is approved, the municipal services review. And so we're looking at a good 4 to 6 months. We did meet with the potential developer of that property, and they are putting together documents, and they advise it's gonna take them a good the next 3 months to kind of get everything together to move forward. So we're on schedule to where everybody's on the same path.
Timeline.
So, timeline, correct.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
While this is all proceeding and it's all good, one consideration I'm wondering about, and it could be the bump in the road that derails this thing, that intersection is gonna need lighting. Where are we at on that? Have we contacted Caltrans or dealt with any of that?
Excuse me. So in their application through the specific plan, they're gonna have to apply for a specific plan through the city because their project is over 5 acres. They're going to need to do environmental documents as well as a traffic control study. And in those documents that they'll be putting together, it's gonna have those items that may come up as potential issues that need to be mitigated. And at that point is where we would have the documentation to move forward with Caltrans and bring up that item, which our city engineer is aware of that as well. And so I have him basically putting together a rough document of all the things that are gonna need to happen for this project to move forward.
Because if that weren't considered as part of the project, I'd be very reluctant to push forward. Because
If it were or weren't?
if it weren't,
Okay,
because of the situation, the stacking that would occur.
okay.
You'd have traffic all the way back to the other side of Brennan.
That's a good point, yep.
I mean, this is critical stuff. We need to make sure we don't get caught where we're committing ourselves to something and then finding out, whoa. So,
It's definitely come up in our discussions.
I would
So
hope
all
so.
the staff is aware, yeah, that, what are we gonna do? We want that traffic light. We tried for it a few years ago. We were told no. This is our opportunity to bring it forward again.
you're also gonna have to deal with the railroad there too as well. That
Yes.
railroad's gonna have to modify that crossing to accommodate the traffic that is gonna be taken in the stacking there. So that's another issue we need to address.
Okay. I'll
So
make
those
sure
are
that-
critical
Yeah.
things that if we're gonna move forward, which again, I have no issue with, but unless those are addressed properly, I'm reluctant to go forward with it.
Okay, I'll make sure our engineer's taking a look at those items.
Thank
Well,
you.
Mayor Rouse, I know several years ago, talking with District 10, they admitted that, yeah, if you had that area developed, that would be a game changer in terms of their approval for a traffic stop. So let's see if they are gonna put their money where their mouth is on that one.
Well, it's critical. I know that a lot of times they put us off because we're a smaller community and they don't feel like, I don't know what they feel like, but I know that we don't get the attention sometimes I wish we could. All right, staff, any more?
Yes. So Irwin Village. Many of you may have heard of this project. They had applied maybe 3 weeks ago. And this is a senior housing project, which is a single-story senior housing project, which will include 12 fourplexes for a total of 48 units. That will also include a community center, laundry facility, and community garden area, as well as site development, grading, water, sewer, storm connections to city services, parking, 60 parking spaces, landscaping, street frontage improvements, et cetera. This item is going before the Planning Commission next week. So we have sent the mailers out on this project. Everybody within a 300-foot radius is advised that this project's moving forward. And it's going to Planning Commission for site and architecture.
One other issue, again, we have the same issue there we do on Brennan. We have a problem with the light, stacking of the traffic, and the railroad tracks. Those have to be addressed. Because what we don't want is the development that is gonna create total chaos. And that's what could happen unless we address these things beforehand. You're gonna have traffic issues like you've never seen before. And that, again, the tracks may have to be redesigned, or not the tracks, but the actual format they have there for the arms coming down. You have to have an apron, so much apron there and stuff for cars to be out there.
Okay.
So those are two critical locations. Unfortunately, because of our development, they're gonna be impacted by those decisions. So we need to stay on top of that. In order, if we're gonna proceed with either one of them, those are things that have to be addressed and dealt with.
Do you know, are they also bound to have a traffic study?
For this project, I want to say they've already completed their environmental, and so all of that stuff was completed at county level, because San Joaquin County is a part of the project, and they're the main agency, because they're applying for both state and federal money,
Right.
and so a large environmental document was completed, and it's a part of the package that's going next week. I'm not sure if I'm sure traffic was in there. It's separate from what our planning commission is looking at. Our planning commission is limited to site and architecture approval. Anything having to do with the infrastructure, public improvements, those type of things, that's in-house through the city engineer. And so these items should be being looked at, and they should be a part of whatever we're requiring them to do in accordance to construct the project. And so I will double check with our engineer and make sure that these items are being taken into consideration.
Could we have a report back on our next meeting, please?
Of course.
And if you get anything sooner, could you let us know?
Sure.
I have a question on that, if I may. So I heard about this, I don't know too much about this project, but I did hear that the county was going to bring in senior housing, right? And is this Section 8 housing? Is this subsidized? Low-income housing?
This is affordable housing, yes.
Okay, so who's building it? Who's the developer?
So what happens is a developer who specializes in constructing affordable housing projects is essentially the one building it. And then they utilize a nonprofit agency to apply for the state and federal funding. And so the nonprofit agency that they're working in partnership with is the San Joaquin County Housing Authority. And so they provide the vouchers to the people who would live in this property that would essentially subsidize the rent.
So when we were talking about what to
And
do
it's
with
55 and up.
55 and up, so when we were talking about what to do with the orchard, which I also want to find out what we're supposed to do with that orchard. We know we went out, we put an RFP out and all this stuff, and nobody came back, and we wanted 50 units or whatever we said for senior housing, and we didn't get any bites. How does this one just immediately come to the forefront where they're going before planning commission? It's like we didn't even know about it, and it seems like the county has just decided we're going to build these low-income senior housing in your town, and there's nothing you can do about it.
So
Not that we want to stop it, but I'm just saying it seemed to just jump the line.
Well, it's a little different. First of all, the company builds it out of Stockton. They built the one there in Manteca on, I don't know if you're familiar with the car wash. If you go down Yosemite, there's a car wash, you turn right, then there's an overpass. Before the overpass, they did that development.
Okay.
Cottage.
Yeah, off Cottage, thank you. And Manteca was partners with them, the city of Manteca.
Okay.
And it had cost overruns, almost to $1 million, I understand. And what they get, the reason they're able to build these things is because of the credit they get from the state and, what is it, state and federal?
they apply to the state and federal government for tax credits.
That's
So
how they
there's
get-
2 times a year you can apply for those.
Right, I'm familiar with that.
Yeah, and so essentially you get the credits if you're providing some type of project that provides affordable housing in the terms of the state's regulations.
Okay.
And so the difference there is what the projects that the city's been looking at doing, we've kind of coined as attainable, and it's above affordable, but it's below market rate. So we're in that in-between. They call it the 80 to 120% median income, where not a lot of grants or money is put towards, because right now the state and federal government's focus has been low income, affordable, and so they've set that threshold. And so because they're providing that type of housing, the county provides that 501c3.
Right, they get tax money because they're going to build for, yeah, I understand.
Correct.
So where is this project being built at again?
The auction yard, the
Old auction yard
Irwin.
property, so it's Irwin in California.
Oh, okay.
There's like a little house sitting there, a little white house that,
Has needed to be bulldozed for decades at this point.
yes.
Is there a site map that anybody in the community can go to that'll show us a rough site map of where traffic flows are? Is there entrances on California, or is it just on Irwin, that sort of thing?
There will be,
Just-
it's gonna be published with the planning
agenda?
commission agenda.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that's all going through finalization, and as soon as we could get it up and out, we can
Well,
get it out.
it's important that we
And that
have
meeting's
a
next week.
review of it before we get this thing down our throats. I mean, if it's coming, it's coming, but let's see what's going on.
Yeah, and we provide copies in your binders, and I can have them CC you on the email as well.
A quick question. Is there any way to give priority to Escalon citizens, or is this?
So that's actually something I've been looking to put together, is some type of proposal to inquire as to whether or not they can use our listing that we have at Heritage House. I just haven't had a chance to contact them yet. And so that's on my priorities for this week, is to reach out to, his name is Chip, and discuss that. If you go through their documents, they're also applying for our Cdbg funding, which is that community development block grant funding. So that'll come to the council in the future as well. It's only $75,000, but we have it every year, and we have not been able to utilize that money in several years due to the restrictions on it, and they do qualify for it. So that might be a great way to work out, trying to see if they can at least have a soft opening, to see if we can try.
Get an updated list from Heritage, what their overflow looks like right now.
Yeah, which
Wait list.
has changed. Originally, when we had looked into it, it was a lot, and then we had received an update that it wasn't that many, so.
I would think.
But essentially, this project is almost exactly like Heritage House. It's gonna be newer, so.
I would just think our citizens should have priority, you know. That's all I'd
I
say.
agree with that, but I don't know legally whether we can enforce it or not.
It's definitely gonna be requested and asked.
Well, I'd like an answer before we approve it. That'd be nice. Okay.
And just for a little further information specifically regarding the traffic flow, I'm looking at the environmental report for the Irwin Village. And it talks about traffic in a lot of different areas. However, there's a section regarding transportation, and I'll just read this section. Development of the project would generate new vehicle trips and potentially affect traffic operations at nearby intersections, particularly SR 120 Irwin Ave intersection. However, based on the estimates of the Cal EE mod run for the project, on Appendix A, the average daily trips generated by the project would be approximately 115, with fewer trips on Saturdays and Sundays. The number of trips is expected to have little impact on traffic volumes of nearby roads, particular SR 120, and it would not conflict with transportation plans that seek to maintain traffic flow, such as the circulation element.
Okay, now,
And this came from which organization with those comments?
This is the environmental review. It's the
Baseline.
draft initial study mitigated negative declaration that was just put out this month for that.
So we have 48 units, and they're 1 or 2 bedroom facilities, 55 and older. So what, we've got max 100 folks that would be living in that community if it was fully loaded, if you will.
Right, and the plan for the environmental report further indicates that because it is a 55 and over, there's less traffic than there would if it was a normal residential facility, and seniors taking less trips than the average, so that's why they're in part.
I'd argue
saying
the
there's
latter, that's backwards thinking, because they're retired and have more time to go to
I'm just providing you the
he's a
information.
messenger, don't you know?
I know, I'm just thinking, I was like, no?
How, can we challenge that, by the way, because I don't agree with it, and I think it really is backwards. And what we don't want is to get this thing built and all of a sudden have to pick up the dime for mitigating it. I don't want Escalon to have to pay for what they don't want to deal with now.
Well, certainly staff will reach out and indicate the concern with this portion of the report.
How many acres are on that property?
3.
3. If they,
3.17.
so if someone was to tie into, I can't remember, is that road, not Roselle, the other street, if they put houses there instead of high-density senior living, how many houses do you think you could project to possibly put in 3 acres, give or take?
Fair about 4 per, no more than that, about 8 per acre. It's about 24 houses probably.
So you could have potentially, if you developed houses, you could have 24 houses as opposed to 50 of more elderly folks in theory than full families with teenage drivers. So it wouldn't be much different than high density if they packed in houses.
Yeah, I bet you the rationale is that they're not all going to be leaving for work at 8 a.m.
Yeah.
You know, unlike the school districts, you know, they're not all going to be coming back at 3:15. It's going to be much more random over the course of the day.
Again, this is,
Well, same
this was
thing.
just staff information.
Sure.
That's going to
Yeah.
be
Just thinking
discussed.
out loud, yeah.
Dominique, so the plan goes to the planning commission, and then they talk about it. Does it even have to be approved by anybody, or can they just, you know?
We only can do, the city can only do the site and architecture. So that is what the planning commission is moving forward with. And then this project, because it's a 100% affordable housing project, once planning commission's done, they would move forward with their project.
So you're saying that we have no control over it? Is that what you're saying?
That's unbelievable.
Because it's 100% affordable, the discretion that the city is allowed to have is considered to be objective, and so site and architecture is the.
See, and I gotta bring this up, because we talked about doing something with that acreage over there and being proactive about getting what kind of housing we wanted in there, and this is the result. We dragged our feet on that, we get creative enough, or whatever you can call it, and now we have affordable housing coming in to town, or low-income housing for seniors. That's fine if that's what people want, but there is something that goes along with that. Do you want to be a town that's got affordable housing, or, you know, because there's just something that goes along with that, and you know, we're trying to look out for what kind of town we want to build, and, you know, what kind of housing and what kind of people, and I'm just saying, you know, it just seems like we had a chance over there to get the type of senior housing that we wanted in, and now we're getting fully subsidized government housing in, and so it's happening.
For 55 and up, which makes it no different than Heritage House. So Heritage House.
I was never in favor of doing another Heritage House, so.
So the best place for comments is at the end, under comments. Thank you.
Okay.
And then one last item.
Sure.
Sorry. So regarding SSJAD, we had back in September, we had our consultant come to council and provide 3 different options for the surface water project. And at that time, the council had chosen option C, which was the air gap booster pump project that we were going to be trying to propose to SSJAD to move forward with. And so we did have our meeting before the end of the year and went over that project with them, and they did have some concerns that they let us be aware of. And so in the next few months, our staff is going to be looking at trying to address those concerns and modify the project. And then before we come back to council with that project, I'd like to make sure that SSJAD is on board with that concept and then bring it back to you. And then we should know overall where we stand with that.
Well, your meeting with the irrigation district was a little enlightening, is what you told me. In other words,
It was my first meeting, and there's a couple other things that they've been addressing, not specific to our project, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
So we'll get more information on that before that gets to a point of moving on. There's some things we probably have to discuss.
Correct. Yeah, and just nothing has moved forward since then, so I don't have
Okay.
anything to report out on that.
Good.
And want to make sure I got everything. That's it.
Okay, now, I have to ask everybody if they're input on any of these items we discussed.
Yep.
We're good?
I have another couple questions.
Go ahead.
What is going on with the pool? Are we shutting the pool down?
So
That should be under staff communication, yeah, right?
Well, it's staff report, and we're providing information. As long as it doesn't go into a discussion, great question.
Okay.
But it just can't go into discussion, then we have to put it on an agenda.
What is the status of the high school pool as it pertains to the city?
So nothing has moved forward yet. We have been meeting, we've continued to meet with the school district for our monthly meetings. And at all of the meetings, we asked the status, which was basically asking the school district to contact the person that put the company that put the assessment together and ask them if they can update that assessment to reflect just the items that need to be addressed and where that would land. And so they haven't been able to, they haven't given us an update on that yet. I do meet with them. We meet with them on Thursday, and so I'll ask again.
Sure.
But they also were looking at that time, I'd advised council that they were also looking at obtaining quotes to basically secure the pool off properly in the event that we do move forward with not utilizing it. And the last time we had met, they weren't able to provide quotes on that either. They were basically advising that a lot of the companies they're contacting and trying to get estimates for and costs, they're just not getting that information and are having to call repeatedly, and nobody's providing them anything.
Okay,
So
that's fair enough.
It's been ongoing.
Thank you. Next question, what is going on with the trees that I just talked about? Because I thought the lease on those was up in January, and we were supposed to like talk about renewing our lease with Tilbury, or what we're doing with those, if we're gonna take them out and plant, what are we doing?
So both of those leases have expired, and when we had spoken to the almond company, Tilbury, regarding those leases, they were interested in long-term. They had talked about the possibility of short-term, but that it was going to be more costly, obviously, because it would be short-term and you'd need an exit clause in the event that we wanted to move forward. So that was when we were experimenting or looking into the growing of alfalfa. And so I was in discussions with somebody who was interested in doing that. However, their explanation on both of the properties was that the amount of time and money it was going to cost to remove all the trees and then grade the ground was going to take them 2 to 3 years before they would be able to move forward with planting alfalfa. And so they weren't interested. We did find another person who specialized in alfalfa, and we were looking at alfalfa because it's short term. And we had contacted them a few different times. I know Justin had reached out to them a few different times, and we hadn't heard anything back. And so at this point, we don't have anything moving forward on those properties.
So those leases
We're
are,
looking for, everything's expired. And
what does that mean? We're on a month-to-month, or?
We don't have anything on those properties right now.
So they're not farming them,
They're not farming them.
and we're not getting any
Which
money?
they had said they weren't gonna farm them anymore anyhow.
Okay.
both of them.
Yeah, I think that's
And
important.
that's why they wanted a long-term lease.
Yeah, okay,
She
well,
had opted not to move forward with
I
it.
think we should put that on the next agenda to talk about.
Because as of right now, you've missed pruning season, you've missed your dormant sprays, I mean, not that it would have been worth it to do it anyway, you know, with the
Trees are
like,
pretty bad.
yeah, with the age of the trees, but now we're kind of just drifting.
Well,
And then we did have a contact that we were looking for removal of the trees and working something out with that as well. And we were unable to have a return call from that as well.
I have a potential contact as well. I'll talk to you afterwards.
and there's state funding for the removal of those trees as well.
Okay.
All right. We done? Can we move on?
Yeah, I'm done.
All right, here we go. We're gonna move on to matters presented from the audience. The public may address the city council on any item that is on the agenda at the time it is called, the item is called. The public may also address the city council on any item on the agenda that is within the authority of the city council. Each speaker is limited to a maximum of 5 minutes. Unused time may not be yielded to another speaker. Determination of whether an item is within the authority of the city council is discretionary decision made by the mayor. All right, we're gonna open that up. Is there anyone out there who'd like to come to the podium? Please do. Give us your name, please, and state your case.
My name is Lois Dollarhide, and I have this typed out because I'm kind of nervous. I haven't
That's
done it
okay,
in
we're not here to hurt you.
time. My name is Lois Dollarhide, and I'm here tonight to bring your attention to the condition of many of the sidewalks here in Escalon, and ask you to develop a procedure for residents to bring to your attention hazardous sidewalks that can cause falls and serious injury. My husband has tripped twice now because of uneven sidewalks. The first time was last May when he hit his head on the sidewalk and developed a hematoma that was finally resolved in December 2021 after 2 doctor visits and 3 MRIs. Last Thursday, while walking at the corner of Countrywood and Swanson, we both tripped on uneven sidewalk. I was able to recover, however, he didn't. This time he didn't hit his head, but he landed on his arm, and it tore the skin. And by the time we got home, it was really swelled up, and it swelled up. Can I give this to you?
Yes, you may. Yeah.
It swelled a lot. When we left emergency, the skin back in place. But Saturday, when I took the ambulance off, it was about a quarter of an inch.
Did you break any bones?
From swelling.
Were any bones broken?
No,
Thank
thankfully,
God.
no bones were broken, but they did x-ray his ribs because he has a lot of pain right in here, and his elbow and his knee was injured. Falling causes fear, and we've experienced that. It took us months to even go across the tracks there at St. John and to cross over into the old area around Coley where he had fallen. And it can cause you to decide not to walk or not to walk very far away from home. Any doctor you go to will encourage you to walk for any number of benefits, and Escalon is a real nice town to walk in. We were encouraged when sidewalk was repaired on McHenry, as we sometimes walked in the street to avoid raised bricks when the trees were lifting everything up. I've tried to think of some things that could help, because I know replacing sidewalk is an expensive endeavor, but it would help to spray paint along where the cement is raised so it causes you to see it. Because the day when we were walking last Thursday, we had crossed the tracks there at St. John's. We had walked down Santa Fe, down to First Street, crossed the tracks there on First Street, and got onto McHenry and came home, and we were almost home when that happened. And at first he didn't realize he'd hurt himself. And when the lady stopped to talk to us to see if we were okay, after she left, he touched his arm and he realized it was bleeding. And so we thought, you know, if you could spray paint the raised cement areas to call attention to them until they can be ground down, or sidewalks could be replaced to prevent accidents in the future. And there are a lot of people who walk here in Escalon. We've met a lot of people in town just talking to them on the sidewalk, and a lot of those people are older. I'm not going to put an age on it, they're just older. So injuries at this age can be very serious because it's harder to heal when you get older, and they cause a lot of pain. And I hope you will make it a priority to make Escalon sidewalks safe to all who walk, run, or skate on them. I would like to suggest that you have some system where we could contact you when we saw something that was dangerous. I've been here to report the first time my husband fell, and I was told that we wouldn't need to fill out a complaint unless we wanted money. And we don't want money. We just want the sidewalks to be safe for everybody. And so I'd like to know who I could contact to find out, what you decide. And I'd like to also offer any, if there was anything I could do to help with something like that could benefit the
Very nice.
residents.
Mark, what do you suggest?
Well, I was just asking the city manager who is it that we can call?
Public Works.
Who would-
So you
right.
could come to the front counter. I'm not sure why we didn't give her a form, because we can use the code enforcement form to put that information down and put it as a complaint. You just don't have to list the address of the complaint, just the area, and then fill out what the issue is, and we can move forward with it.
I was talking to somebody Sunday at church, and they knew of someone who had broken a leg falling on the sidewalks. I know there's a lot of more people than my husband and I that have tripped and fallen. And, and even if it's not serious enough to go to the doctor, but like the nurse told us that the lady that stopped this last time, she said, something could happen in the middle of the night, after falling, and you should go to the emergency or go see your doctor. Well, when I got home and he pulled his shirt off and I saw the big bump that was swelling up there, I immediately took him to the emergency. This is a picture walking of the difference in I guess the tree is raising it up.
Sure.
So right, the best thing we'd do is to fill out the basically a code complaint form, and both code compliance will look at it and then forward it to essentially Public Works, so they could go out and look at it and see if there's any quick fixes they can do to render it safe.
Yeah, because the first time that I was in there, I was told that unless we wanted to be reimbursed for anything, that we didn't need to fill it out. So I said, well, I don't want any money because we have Medicare and a supplement that pays for the doctor bills, And when I was in the other day, the lady was very helpful, and she does have a copy of the picture that I gave.
They did forward them over to us, and we did send Public Works out to spray paint that area, so it should be spray painted now.
Okay, we haven't walked by there yet.
Is the city liable for sidewalks that are all busted up and if somebody gets hurt on them?
Well, we couldn't go into that right now, but yeah, I would not want to go into that right now.
Okay.
Yeah, but
All right, so
the city of Oakdale has several, that's what they'll do. They'll just spray paint as a quick stopgap measure, so yeah.
It catches your eye,
Yeah.
so you're,
Well, listen, I want to thank you for coming tonight and presenting your situation to us, and I apologize for whatever may have happened to you guys. It's not our intent, of course, in the city of Escalon to hurt our residents, and I appreciate your understanding of the situation, both of you. Thank you very much.
thank you.
And if anything you need doesn't get resolved, you may call me personally if you like, and I will do what I can to expedite it.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you for coming down,
Thank you.
both of you. Sorry again.
Good evening again, Mr. Mayor and city council members. Sean Stroman, Yosemite Avenue. Just want to touch on a couple things. Excuse me, I would highly recommend that before the 2022-2023 budget is passed, that you make a really hard look at construction materials and the pricing of those materials before you adopt the budget. You touched on it briefly a little bit earlier, but a comment was made, well, why was this item double the cost? And normally, material suppliers would hold their pricing for 60 days, 90 days, and that has now gone to, they're holding their price for 24 hours. Or not even 24 hours, they'll give you a quote today, and if the price went up by the morning when they load the truck, you're paying for what it's on the truck. So I really recommend you look at that. I don't know if Justin Collins is still on the line or not, but Justin, just a suggestion for those projects that you have coming up in the next fiscal year. You may want to look at buying the materials for those projects and then just putting the bid out for the labor only, because the material prices are skyrocketing to the point where they're absolutely ridiculous. Not only are prices ridiculous, but they're not holding their delivery dates. So on a recent project that I had, we were supposed to have the electrical switchgear show up last Thursday. We called last Wednesday to confirm delivery, and we were told it's now coming the middle of August. So, yeah, for switchgear, which is the main electrical service. So, Justin, if you're on the line, consider that. And if I can help, let me know. This is just a comment because I understand you can't talk about it, but normally in a construction project such as Irwin Village, there is a requirement for CEQA, which is the California Environmental Quality Act. And as part of the CEQA requirements, they're required to have a public hearing. I don't know about you five, but I never received any notice of public hearing for the CEQA for Irwin Village. So I understand it's for affordable housing, but how did they get around the CEQA requirement? I understand they can claim that they're CEQA exempt, and they're categorically exempt, but there's still a public hearing that's required as part of that process. So did they just totally skip that part? I don't know, just food for thought. Thank you.
Thank you. Staff, we can look into that.
Sure, yeah.
Is there anyone else who'd like to come up this evening and speak about anything you like? Is there anyone online or on a phone that'd like to talk about anything you have on your mind? Okay, not hearing any takers, we're gonna move on, and we're gonna move on to a public hearing. Introducing and waiving the first reading ordinance number 30, amending or adopting chapter 1712.010, accessory buildings 17.12.015, carport structures 17.41.95, temporary structures 17.81.040, C definition 17.81.210, T definition 17.11.040, list of permitted uses and use permitted by conditional use permits by zoning district, and 17.43020, number of off-street spaces required as recommended by the Planning Commission, continued from January 18th, staff.
This item was actually continued from the last meeting. Did you want me to go through the staff report again, or?
Council members, do you want to hear the staff report again?
No, thank you.
It doesn't sound like they want to hear it.
And so this item was essentially tabled because at the last meeting, when it was voted upon, the motion failed to approve the ordinance. And so the city council was advised by both staff and legal counsel that if the ordinance doesn't pass, essentially the ordinance that is currently existing on the books would be the one that remains active. And at this point in time, the one that remains active is more restrictive than the building code.
I would like to make a recommendation that we table this and have a meeting with the council to review it and to modify what we have concerns about and bring it back to a council meeting in the future. There's a lot of that information, I think, that I personally am not confirmed, and I don't quite understand all of it. And I've heard that from a couple other council members. So in the best interest of doing the right thing for this community, I'd like to have an opportunity that we could review it in a committee-type situation on a meeting before the meeting, like maybe a 2-hour heads up before the meeting. Is that possible?
Sure. I mean, essentially what's presented today, this is the time to go over it if you wanted to.
Well, it's a little more complicated than that. I think it would take a long time. There's a lot of issues here we want to go through.
Then I would suggest, yes, doing a special meeting
Okay?
And that could be the only agenda item, and you could make the special meeting an
Okay.
hour or 2 hours before the regular meeting.
Perfect.
But it would be an open session for discussion of that item alone.
That's fine, but I would like that opportunity, and I would like more time to research and also get more information from staff, so when we finalize this thing, we're all in agreement. Because there's a lot of stuff in there that's got a lot of our scratching our heads. We're not sure what the heck happened. Okay? So if I could get a motion to that effect.
Yeah, you know, I think my issue with this is that I'm looking at, we basically have three options at this point. Either we stick with this one, okay, which skirts very closely to the state standards that the staff has to abide by, or we don't, and then we stay with the one we currently have, which is, again, is most restricted of the three, or we just go to the standards, scrap the entire thing, go to the state standards again, of which they would need to abide by. So I think my concern is that we could go through the minutia of this all we want, and ultimately, it doesn't really matter because the standards are the standards, not that I like them or you like them or anybody else likes them. But, you know, to be spending more time on this, I feel like we're beginning to beat a dead horse because, again, the staff is legally bound to have to abide by the law on these things, whether or not they like it or anybody else likes it. And I just think that that's where the end game's at. I think we're at the end game.
I think there's a fourth option. You said those three. There's a fourth one, and I don't know how many meetings ago this was. I think it was at a planning commission meeting when our city attorney, I think it was Ann, she informed, I think it was the planning commission, that, or somebody bringing the question up, that we don't have to enforce the code. Those were her words. You could just choose not to enforce the code. And here's my thing with this, and I'm never going to be okay with this ordinance because it's taking away people's right to build a carport on their thing, and that's just something I just can't figure it out. I'm just not okay with it. I think people should be allowed to build what they want on their thing. I know we're talking about what ordinance. I think the fourth option is we don't enforce it. We stop code enforcement on carports. It's my suggestion.
Well, that's not a bad suggestion if it's legally possible, but again, if that's the track we move, then we're still at the end game.
Gentlemen, we need
Then we
more
might as well
time on
stay with what we have.
This is not gonna work. We need more time on it. I'm telling you, we need to brainstorm a little more. There's gotta be some kind of a solution here that we're not seeing. And I don't see it now, and I'd like the opportunity to go over it.
At the end of the day, we have codes that we have to be within a certain guideline there.
That's true.
We can go back and forth on that. I think that what we have in front of us is something that is pretty workable. Yes, there are some folks out there in our town that are in violation of a code no matter how you slice it. Others are close and whatnot. But at the end of the day, not every property in a town that is developed has the opportunity to have covered RV parking there just because they've got a spot where they might be able to put it. We're putting this stuff within the building code, and now we're arguing whether or not we're agreeing with the building code to be able to enforce it. Where does that line stop with what we want to do with our property? We've been up here talking as a group saying that people should be able to do what they want with their property, but yet we stood up here and voted to go against SB 9, allowing property owners to do what they want with their property with multiple housing. So that's in conflict with what we already talked about there. So I struggle when we want to control one aspect of what people can do with their property, but not others. So by staying within the guidelines of our code here, I think it's a safe bet as far as staying away from any trouble with that. So whether we beat it and go to the old one and it's more restrictive, or we go with this, which worked pretty hard within the lines that were given, in my opinion, to make it as pretty workable as possible and it still be aesthetically somewhat pleasing for the community. But again, I hate to say it, but not every property has the ability to have covered RV parking. Some have it, some don't. Some have the restrictions, some don't. I'm sorry, but if you have that many toys and that many vehicles, maybe you need to move to a larger lot out in the country. I don't know, but not every lot in town is allowed this, in my
That is the most arrogant thing to tell somebody, that if they, not every house is meant to have RV parking. If they can fit an RV on their side yard and they want to cover it with something, they should be allowed to do that. Let me make a quick point here. I was going to save this till Council Communications, but it seems to be the golden calf that we all bow down to is the California Building Code. So the California Building Standards Commission is authorized by the state of California. It was created in 1953 by the California Building Standards Law, okay? They update it every 18 months, triennial, intervening code, adoption cycle. It's this long government minutia, but here's my point. It was created in 1953. My house that I live in was built in 1950, before the California Building Standards Commission was even around, before they had any building codes. You know how many times my house has burned to the ground? 0. You know how many times my house has fallen down on me? 0. You know how many people have died in my house? 0. My house was built by a guy that didn't follow these codes because they weren't around. So I'm saying I don't look at the California Building Code as this standard that is really designed for anybody's protection or safety. And another comment was made, you know, people want to do it. I think gentleman got up and said it's a very libertarian idea to say people should be able to do it right with what they want with their own property, as if that's a bad thing. That's a very good thing. That's what we need to be protecting, is people's private property to do with what they want. Another thing that Mayor Edhouse talks about is, you know, handling this between your neighbors. That's the way it used to be. If you want to build something on your property, go to your neighbor, say, hey, I want to build this. And they go, well, I have a problem with that. I want you to do it. And then you work it out. But somehow the government's got involved in this, right in the middle of that interaction, which it shouldn't be. It's taking away people's self-governance. And so we can talk about it more. That's fine, but that's where I stand on this.
Pretty much in line with that. And I'll tell you, the thing is, you talk about carports, we allow people to put motor homes on their lot with 0 clearance, which have diesel in them or gasoline or chemicals or whatever, which are unsightly, but yet we don't have a problem with that. And yet people want carports to house these vehicles, and it's a problem. It just seems to me that we've gotten carried away with this whole thing. And that's why I really, despite the comments, I still think we need to sit down and hammer this thing out a little better. I don't think it's the way it should be, and I don't think it represents this community the way the community wants it to be. And I still want to do a special meeting. I need a motion.
I'll motion that.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
There it is, 3-2. We're having a special meeting. Thank you.
We all have to
Do
go.
you want to schedule that now, or do you
We
want me to
can.
send out some dates?
We'll set some dates.
Send out dates or review dates now?
I'm sorry?
Do you want me to send out some dates, or do you want to go ahead
Send
and
them
schedule
out, please, and we'll
now?
get back to you. It'd be easier. All right, thank you very much. All right, so the next item now is administrative matters. Consideration of approving appointments for council members to various committees and commissions. Staff.
So this item was also continued from the last meeting. With former Mayor Pro Tem Jeff Legero's departure, the local committees and commissions in which he served need to be updated. The following committees: he served as alternate to the San Joaquin County Advisory Water Commission, alternate to the Cdbg Policy Advisory Committee, and alternate to the San Joaquin Council of Government Board of Directors. So these are all alternate positions that we need to fill with anybody who either is interested, and for the most part, the most active of these boards is the Board of Directors. The CDBG Policy Advisory and the San Joaquin County Water Commission, I don't believe that they've been, well, maybe the Water Commission's been meeting more, but the CDBG one is an as-needed basis.
And the water meets, but I've never attended. I get the emails.
Okay,
The
I haven't
summaries.
received any emails, and so that was making me think.
I get a
maybe
couple
they didn't-
summaries from them, I think they're monthly.
Okay, yeah, the meetings are monthly, but I wasn't sure because I haven't been
Yeah.
receiving anything.
I think it's
so.
customary that the newest city council member is on all of these, right? They do all of them. I think that's right.
So
Is that right?
I'm at a different level of CDBG. I'm
Oh.
at the lower level. You get to be the higher level.
Oh.
And I'm at the lower level of SJCOG. You get to be the higher level.
Well, let's start this way. Why don't we ask if there's anybody who has an interest in these committees? Let's start with that.
I'll take the alternate for the San Joaquin County Advisory Water Commission.
There you go. Thank you, Councilman Swift.
I cannot be the alternative for the SJCOG Board of Directors because I'm already there.
Okay.
Maine.
Anyone interested in being an alternative for the COG?
Not exactly sure what I'd be doing.
Okay, well then I'll do the
That's pretty
alternate. I'll do the alternate. but you're gonna do it.
I'm doing it, so
Yeah,
you're pretty safe right now.
Perfect for it, that's who we need. All right, that's, those two, what else is left?
The other one is the CDBG HUD Policy Advisory Committee, which is held on an as-needed basis.
You know, Peter, that might be good for you.
Which one?
It's the CBG, it's basically the grant money we're getting and the money where it should go sort of thing, right?
Oh,
Correct. for
Yeah.
Specific to CDBG.
You have a little more discretion in terms of where the money's coming and going.
I'll do it.
All right, there it is.
It's been a few years since they've met.
I know.
I want the money to go back to the taxpayers. That's where I want it to go.
There you go, me too.
That's my position.
All right, so now, does that resolve that?
There was one,
You would go ahead and appoint those,
Okay,
and then everybody would vote.
I see. Well, do we
May I-
one at a time or all three?
May I suggest we hear from the public first?
I certainly will.
Thank you.
All right, anyone in the public would like to add any kind of comment regarding these committees we are going to be assigning? Would you please come to the podium and give us your opinions, or your, whatever it is you'd like to do? And seeing none, how about on the phones or the computers? Are there anyone out there? Okay, so we'll bring it back and do one at a time? Or all three?
Them all.
Up to you, Your Honor.
Let's do all three. All right, we've identified Councilman Swift
Right, for the Water Commission.
and Councilmember Hagan is going to be taking on, no, nobody.
CDBG.
Peter, excuse me, Councilman Crummage will take on, and the CBG, and I will take the alternative for the COG. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, all those in favor?
Yep.
hold on.
Aye.
Is there one more? Oh, there is
There's
one more.
at the bottom.
Oh, gee, I'm
Sorry, I think I saw one on the
where,
bottom.
what is it? I didn't see that one.
I could have swore there was
Sand monkey, yeah, SJVUAPCD,
Oh, sorry,
city
flip the
selection.
page over. Alternate
it's not
for air pollution control. Peter, I believe, is the primary on this
I've
one.
already done that one for 5 years, I'm not going back.
What is this?
So this would be a good
Well,
one,
that-
Councilmember Hagan.
Councilman Hagan will be.
Take it, they'll feed you
And it could
sandwiches,
be
man.
as, they
Yeah,
don't,
that's
they don't
good.
typically
Yeah.
meet in
Oh, you
person,
took my
so.
place on that.
Yeah.
What?
It's quite a trip.
Yeah, you eat and then you leave.
What you have is an opportunity to meet representatives from the community here in the valley. It's kind of neat in that respect, but to be honest with you, I don't know what they ever accomplished.
And the meetings are on an as-needed basis.
Right.
They're all teleconference.
That's correct, yes.
That's even better.
And they were like that pre-COVID.
Well, we had a telecom there in Modesto.
You could go to those locations or you could call in.
Oh, I'd rather do the calling, well, though, it's a good place to do some, what's the word?
Networking?
Networking, bingo. Because you meet everybody from the valley, that's kind of neat in that respect.
Family shipped in? Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. All right, so we've resolved that. Did we have a motion? Did we do it?
Well, yeah, Courtney, do you have down I mean, I could
Yours
just,
did it first, I didn't get a second.
oh, second.
Second.
You heard it first? Good. I
Okay, do we have a
didn't feel like
second?
making a
Second.
motion.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Okay. Where are we now? We're down here to okay, this is, the next one, report up from negotiating committee.
We are.
So that will be tabled, and we're gonna hear back from,
Can we get that back on the screen, please, the agenda? Is it?
we're gonna be getting that's gonna be tabled because there's still ongoing negotiations. Okay? And then that brings us down to council communication. Councilman Crummage.
Thank you, Mayor Alves. So, I want to go back to the building code really quick, make a comment on that. The planning commission has brought us something that, is as close as possible to the building code. Well, why don't they just, if the building code is the least restrictive, why don't they just give us that? I don't know, are we trying to be more restrictive on these things? We're trying to give people more options. That's my point that I wanted to make. The MSR, I'm glad to see that's moving forward, albeit slowly. I think we need to get that thing finished, and I think that's been something we've been working on for a while. I think it's a good step for a small town to, identify what their services are and what they can handle. I think it's a good thing, so I'm glad see that's moving forward. So last thing I wanted to bring up, and I'm gonna need some support up here for this one. We have a new council member, Councilman Hagan. I want to welcome him. He was appointed. I do not think our process of appointment was as clearly defined as it should be. So I would like to put on the next agenda to get a clearly defined policy for appointing council members to this body in the event that they are absent before their term expires. Does that make sense? I think it'd be good to just have something on paper that says, okay, you know, there's a vacancy, so now we distribute it, we advertise it, we have 2 meetings, and then we just have something on paper. So can I get somebody to agree to put that on the meeting?
Yeah, I'll back you up on that.
You have a second.
All right, thank you. Yeah,
Do we need to vote on this?
No, that was just, you have 2 council members, so
Perfect.
it'll be put
There
up.
it is. You got it.
okay. That being said, again, just like to welcome Councilman Hagan, Dr. Hagan. You know, it's your first meeting up here, so it's kind of exciting, you know? And we should have done more, I think. We should have had something big. Yeah, anyways, welcome aboard, and glad to have you. And that's all I got.
Okay, Councilman Hagan, would you like to elaborate on anything this evening?
I'd just like to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to represent the city, and thank you for the kind words, and hopefully I can do a good job representing the people that live here.
Sir.
All right, Councilman Swift.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to also agree with Councilmember Crumick on all this debating back and forth about the you know, what we were just talking about. Yeah, we just go back to the state standards. They need to enforce something. So, yeah, that's not a bad idea either, Councilmember Crumick. Hey, one quick question. I should have asked this under staff communications. Where are we at with the annual audit? Should I have asked that question?
Maybe.
If I may, we are working on it. The COVID has hit our auditing firm, along with staffing issues here at the city. I'm expecting a draft financials in the next week, which means you'll probably see it February. It may be March, but we're working on it, and we're getting close to the end, if that makes sense.
Sure. I'm sure it wasn't forgotten. I just was just curious. So, thank you. And that's all I have.
Councilman Bellinger.
Yeah, welcome, Dr. Hagan. Appreciate you coming up here and being part of the group. Glad to have you aboard. Happy to hear that making progress on the restroom out at the ball fields. A little disappointed that it's not going to be ready for opening day probably, but it's moving along quite nicely, I think, and so we should have it pretty early in the spring, early summer area. That's great. Glad to hear that we're making progress on our well and SSGID as well. I'm glad to see that some of this infrastructure is moving forward, spending the money that we've got allotted for these things and moving them along, so that's great. Just real quickly on the carports and code and whatnot, just want to make sure that we're all aware that it's a slippery slope if we want to go past what the state codes are in regards to that. I want to make sure that we stay within that, because then you get to, I don't want to get to where we're picking and choosing which codes we want to approve and be okay with, and others we're going to just not enforce. It's a slippery slope, and we got to be careful with that. So we got to make sure that we're in the guidelines to protect not only our citizenry, but our obligations and liabilities should something arise based on a decision we make. So I want to make sure we're very careful with that. So that's all I've got.
Okay. I need to speak to you briefly after the meeting. Sidewalks. We've had these issues with the sidewalks before. Every city has them. It's nothing new. It's unfortunate, those elderly people were subject to that, but that's going to happen. I think that we should probably emphasize a little stricter inspections maybe of the seats, just to make sure that we can try to keep that down. It's going to be there no matter what, but let's put a little more emphasis on Public Works making a map of the town and sidewalks and make sure they're all checked off, that we've got these things under control. Is that possible?
We have a sidewalk inventory that we had done about 5 years ago, so it indicates where all of our issues are.
Updated.
And so we do utilize it, but funding and cost is associated, so.
Okay.
We can definitely.
Well, you gotta look at the other end of that
through it,
cost.
yes.
It's a two-way street on that one. Fix these or get sued. I mean, that's what happens. Okay, as far as the comment made this evening about materials going up and going late, that's an accurate statement. As a contractor, I've had to wait 6 months to get appliances for one of my jobs. 6 months. I had to wait 6 months to get a repair part for a barn door. And it's outrageous what's going on. I don't know why exactly, but I know it's out there, and the prices are gouging. He was absolutely right. The Build Back Better is gonna be paid by the working class. That's all I can tell you. All right, the other thing is, as a contractor, and regarding the code, as a contractor, we have a building code, and the building code is very essential and it's important for a lot of different reasons. But the building code is flexible. As a builder and a remodeler, I've had many occasions where inspectors would come and have a situation where they mitigated a situation because the code was not designed for that application. And there is wiggle room in the building code for things that need to be reviewed and looked at from a different perspective. It's there. It's important we do protect ourselves from liability. I agree with that totally. But I don't believe this was the answer to our problem. I believe this is a start. It needs to be redone and looked over. There's a lot of issues in here that I've heard from people, and they're not happy with them, and their arguments are valid, and we're gonna be able to have that opportunity to go over that in a setting that gives us time that we can sit and hash it out. I don't like to do it this evening because it's really not the time. We don't have the time for it. I mean, I don't want to be here till 11 o'clock at night. What was the other? Another thing I have to ask is regarding a payment to the League of Cities. It's come to my attention, we paid $5,264 to the League of Cities. What is that about?
That's our annual dues to be a member of the group.
What do we get for that $5,264?
It's based on our population, and so it's a formula that they, should be, it's a part of the.
Well, more importantly, what are we getting for that money? I don't care how much it is, and I mean, I do care.
So as a member, we typically get free webinars, or free call-ins, so they continue to send either free webinars or discounted webinars to us regarding things that are happening throughout the state. And then we also have, they have their quarterly dinners, their monthly mayor and city council member roundtables. And so it's they house the place, they provide the refreshments, they provide usually somebody sponsors.
I've been to the meetings,
Yeah, so I mean, it's accumulation of that's what we get out of the league. And then they have their phone calls that we have with like state representatives, people that have their hands involved in a lot of things.
Are those the folks that are together going, that we signed up with against the SB, is it 9 and 10, I believe? They're promoting that, right, for us?
They're a group
They do
that
sort of thing, right?
opposes
Yeah.
and supports bills, yeah.
Yes,
And then
okay.
and then we house with them and submit either letters approving
Support or not?
supporting or opposing, correct?
Okay.
They have two primary functions. One of them is being legislative. In other words, they're the ones that go lobby, they lobby to the legislature regarding city issues. That is, I think they do more of that than anything else. And then the second thing is trainings. So it gives us access to trainings, and although sometimes we still have to pay for the trainings, at least we have access, and they are really good trainings. Half the times when council members are talking to me, I'm actually sending a guide that was developed by them. So we're saving money in that respect if I could just forward you information from the league versus recreating it. But when we sit here and talk about state mandates, the biggest political arm that's opposing them is the League of California Cities. And that is basically what we're paying for.
Lobbyist.
Correct.
If you go to their website too, you can look up specific legislation, and they give you pros, cons, they give you all of the information, and then when they make a stand, you explain all of the background behind it so that you're aware of why you're taking
Would you say that the League of Cities is a nonpartisan organization?
Oh, yes.
You would?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, and next question I have for you is a payment of $905.07 to Rickman Vet Hospital for supplies.
That would be euthanasia.
Euthanasia, okay. Item 4, engineering estimate. Oh, we already went through that one. Yeah, I'm still shocked at the difference in price, and I understand there's mitigating issues there or facts, but that is staggering. So I would like you to talk to our city engineer and have an explanation drawn up for us, please.
Sure.
That is really outrageous. We already did number 5, I did that one. Looks file paper, sounds like that's just I made notes here, I'm just going over. We'll call it. Yep, we talked about the budget, it's gonna be coming up again, and you approximately have any idea when?
So before July 1st, obviously, but probably
Okay.
May.
Well, that's fine, in May. I understand the we're all in in a boat that's been rocking for a while. You know, it's kind of amazing we get anything done anymore. All right. One of the issues we're going to bring up, and I'm going to bring up in the meeting we're having, is this issue of the anonymous tipster for building codes and stuff. We're going to deal with that as well. Let's see. And we're going to talk about that too. Would like to red line. We'll do that. First one, billing, containers. Okay, we'll deal with that tonight. Okay, that's another issue. This stuff I've written, made notes, and most of it pertains to this. I thought this discussion may get talked about tonight. I was hoping it wouldn't. It didn't. Thank goodness for that. No comment. Okay, what is the reason? That's not a thing I want to do with. What about? We talked about that. That's all going to come out in the next meeting. Okay, well, listen. Thank you for your tolerance of my long comments. Is there anything else that council would like to say before we close the meeting? We're going to go to a closed session after this. Is there anything you gentlemen would like to add?
Negative.
Good? Good?
And Mr. Mayor, for the closed session, we need to take public comment before we go into closed session. Otherwise, the public would never actually be able to have a say.
Okay, public comment in about?
Well, the closed session is itemed for performance evaluation.
I got that.
It is an agendized item, so the public can have their input on whether they dislike, want their input into the performance review.
Okay, very good. All right. Well, is there anyone out in the audience this evening who would like to speak on the closed session item? The Public Employees Performance Evaluation Government Code, Section 54957. Is there anyone online? Well, here we have a taker. All right.
Good evening again, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. I will honestly say, I mean, the whole purpose I was here tonight was to talk about the carport issue as a citizen, not as a planning commissioner. And while I really respect Mark and Ann, I feel like sometimes they remain silent on critical issues that could possibly open the city to major amounts of litigation. And so I just ask you to take that into consideration. I understand they're kind of in a weird position because they have to remain silent. But for example, the issue on Genevieve Court, long story short, that carport is illegal by the requirements of the code. And you were advised as the city council that there wasn't problems. Now, granted, Ann's not a building code expert, neither is Mark, but.
Excuse me, is this for the item, is this for the closed session item, or is this for the carport thing?
Yeah,
Is this an open thing?
No, this is just for closed session.
Okay. I think this.
I'm not talking about the carport thing. I'm using that as an example. So all I'm saying is that I'm just requesting that both Ann and Mark, we count on your advice more than what you can ever imagine. My only request is don't be afraid to speak up, even if it's in variance with the consensus of the city council, based on the requirements of the law. That's all I ask.
All righty, thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to come up and speak this evening before we close the meeting and go into closed session? Haven't seen no one. We're going to close tonight's meeting and go into closed session. Thank you.